right.
Okay, guys, welcome back to Ladies of Golf, where we introduce you to women working in, but also playing the game. And today's guest is a little bit newer to the game of golf, but if you follow her on Twitter, she is definitely a passionate follower of the game. But I would like to introduce you all to Taylor Stern of the Dallas Cowboys Digital Media team.
I'm so happy to be here with you, Abby. I mean, I was just telling you when we got connected, I saw this Ladies Who's Golf and, for the ladies. And I just think that is what we need, especially for golf, because so many people don't realize how to get into it. So thank you so much for letting me join you today.
Yes, of course. I'm excited to talk to somebody who works in sports, but it's not golf, and they still love the game. So we're going to start with this quick 9 where I ask you just these questions and you can answer very quickly. So here we go. The first one, playing golf or football?
Playing golf.
Watching golf or football?
Watching football.
What is your favorite piece of golf apparel?
I would say I love a great golf skirt.
Me too. Your favorite social media channel?
Instagram.
The last book you read?
The Universe Has Your Back by Gabrielle Bernstein.
Okay. The last podcast you listened to?
Gosh, I've listened to a lot. But the Melissa Ambrosini podcast, I'm definitely butchering that title, but she's awesome.
Nice. I think I might know this one, but last show you binge watched?
Which one do you think it's going to be?
Well, I thought it would be Yellowstone, even though you're kind of watching it as it goes.
I need everybody on that bandwagon. But unfortunately, that's a show I can't binge watch because I wish it was, but I'm so jealous of people who haven't seen it because now they have 3 seasons and I'm like, you don't realize the luck. And they're like, this show worth the hype. If I see one more person post now on Instagram that's starting this Yellowstone, so annoyed. I'm like, I'm so jealous of you. It's unfair. But
you don't know.
The last show I binge watched is very embarrassing, but it is every girl I know right now, Selling Sunset on Netflix.
Seriously. Well, it doesn't help that they boost it up there and tell you it's in the top 10. Yeah.
They do that to us, but I watch a lot of bad television sometimes, and I'm just gonna own it.
Yeah, totally. Do you prefer the driving range or playing 9?
Playing 9.
And the proudest moment of your career so far?
I think my proudest moment was when I won my Emmy.
Definitely. Yeah. For the piece with Dak?
For the piece with Dak, and it was because I had been nominated for an Emmy beforehand, and I did not get that. And that one I really thought I would. It was for a playoff piece that we had produced the year before, which was the 2016 season, which was amazing if you follow the Cowboys. And I really thought we had that one pretty much locked down, and we didn't win it. And so when I got nominated for the Dak one was such a special, almost passion project with the 3 of us. It was me, Kent Garrison, and Dave Hellman. It was so passion that we just had done it because we loved it, and it didn't have any sponsor behind it. It was just awesome. And I remember I was there with my boyfriend at the time, not together now, but at the time. And I turned to him and I was like, did they just call our names? And he was like, yes. And I was like, oh my gosh. And it was that moment that you dream about. Now, granted, this is a regional Emmy. I will admit that, but you win it and you're it still counts. I still wore an evening gown, not a designer one, but you just get up there and you start thinking of everyone you want to thank. And I mean, I think that I'm glad you asked me that because as women, I think sometimes we don't slow down and realize the great things that we do in our career. Sure. You starting this, you probably don't even realize the impact you're having on people.
Sure. Yeah. Because you're just moving and trying so hard to do the next thing.
Exactly. Is that all 9?
That was all 9. Well done.
Oh, good. I can't count.
So your role, it sounds awesome at the Dallas Cowboys, and it probably has changed from when you started to today. Could you just share for people who are not as familiar with the sports industry, what a day in the life looks like for you?
Yeah, you're so right. It has changed. And I started there in 2015 as the social media coordinator. And that was just what it sounds. I was posting on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, DCC at the time, Stadium. And then, really, as we started to produce so much content, and I was really finding just new things I was interested in, and I had the flexibility and the freedom to do so, which I'm so grateful for. So I evolved into this new role called content strategist, and it's very broad, but it covers a lot of basically all of our digital content, how we get it out there, how it's distributed, how can we get every piece the maximum exposure, looking at the analytics on the back end and planning on the front end. So it's a really cool job. It's different every day, and especially right now as there's so much unknown. I sent out a biweekly calendar of like, hey guys, here's what I'm thinking for the next weeks. And I was like, this is a joke. Why did I do this? Because so much of it's going to change, especially in the next week.
Right. Right. I know. And I used to do social media for Titleist, which is a golf equipment company. And, I just remember, so when I started, it was like 2015 as well. And things were just like exploding. Everybody like thought that they could do social. Everybody knew, like thought they were an expert. And I was like, no, we're like figuring it out right now. Like just tight.
I'll never forget. I think I was in the airport traveling back. This is when my parents lived in Albuquerque. And I was traveling back and I saw one of my mom's friend in the airport and she was like, oh, I heard you work for the Cowboys. Like, what do you do? And I was like, well, I'm a social media coordinator. And she's like, well, I post on Facebook. Like, I guess I could do that job. I was like, could you? Like, thanks. Like, I'm glad I have a degree for this, but it's so much strategy. And I'm so glad that you come back from a social media background too. And that's of course why I love talking to Maddie, Lou all the time. But it's like people who get social media really get it. And I was telling people today, especially as so we're trying to navigate this new world, it's like social media is truly a game, but you can just play it by the rules you set. So that's kind of how I view it.
I love that. So what would you say is kind of like what makes it different working for such a big brand and organization? Like the Cowboys, they're beloved, but they're also like a big villain to a lot of fans. So what is it like working for a company of that size?
That can be answered in many different ways, but the way that I would answer it for my particular role is that I really had to separate personal from professional in the sense like, and I'm sure you get this working in golf. Like the moment you tell somebody that you work in golf, they're going to say, oh my God, I play golf, or I've always wanted to play golf. I'm sure you get that like all the time. But if I tell someone that I work for the Cowboys, it's like, oh, I hate Jerry Jones or
right.
like, okay, like I just told you my job. Like I used to joke with my mom because she was a teacher, and I'd say, if you tell someone you're a teacher, they're not going to tell you they hate the education system.
Right.
And so I've really learned it's a great thing to work for the Cowboys. Obviously, I've been blessed with such incredible opportunities, like lifetime experiences. But at the same token, I really had to learn that when somebody's saying something about the team or saying something about a player, it's not about me, even though, yes, I'm pushing the button that they're responding to. It really is not me. And so that was a big lesson that I think if I was just doing social for anyone else, I would not have the same issue. It's just that it is so personal. I mean, sports are personal to people, right? So I'm learning that as well.
Yeah, I was talking to Amanda Balionis, who does CBS golf and some CBS sideline for football. And she was like, you have to learn to have a thick skin. And then you also have to figure out like, what is it about yourself? Like, what are you going to stand up for? And what are you going to be proud to put out into the world? And I'm sure, you have to be proud of what you're putting out in the world with the Dallas Cowboys, but of course on your own social as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I appreciate you bringing up these different things on my personal social because I mean, that's where I feel like I can express myself sometimes. And especially in a day and age where we are so connected via the internet.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, we're here to talk about golf, but I did want to give some people your background since you do have a fun role in the sports industry.
Well, I only play golf because of Dak.
All right. Let's hear it. Yeah. I was like, how did you get into the game?
Okay. So this is, and I'm so I am so excited to be talking to you about this because I feel like I'm almost like when you start something new, you know that you're not an expert, but I feel so insecure of my golf knowledge. But so bear with me. But I love
No,
golf
you're
tremendously
good.
and I love it. So about 2-3 years ago, somebody reached out to me from Callaway. It was actually Chad Coleman. I'm sure you know him. He's
Yeah.
awesome. And he was
Yeah.
like, hey, I have some clubs for Dak and I'm going to send them to the Star. And I was like, oh, that'd be awesome. Send them to the X, Y, and Z. I gave him the address. And he goes, do you play? And I was like, I've always wanted to. I just couldn't afford golf clubs or justify it. And
Sure.
then if I had golf clubs, I knew I'd have to get lessons and X, Y, and Z. And growing up,
Yep.
I was more of a tennis girl, if anything. And
Okay.
so tennis was where I spent all of my golf time. And so he ends up sending me some clubs and I said, okay, so now that I have clubs, I have to get lessons. So I
Yeah.
got lessons and I took 10 lessons and it was an instant love, but I knew it would be because I came from the tennis, the individual sport
Sure.
background
Yep.
because it's so individual and so mental.
Yep.
And then I think the best thing that happened to me was that fortunately with my group at the Cowboys, I had mentioned it to another woman that I worked with. And she goes, hey, I'm going to sign us up to the LPGA. So we signed up to the little amateur league and,
Yes.
and we did the Tuesday girlfriend golf thing.
Oh,
And so me, Jennifer, Heidi, I guess 5 of us women in the Cowboys organization, we would go every week and play 9. And it literally became therapy for me at a
yeah.
time. And it's so incredible what happens when it takes 2 hours. And I would know that going in okay, we're going to play at 5:30 and I'll probably be out of here by 8. But
Sure.
it's just the conversations you can have when you're out there, the support that you feel. We would all be like, yes, great hit, love that. And then, it's just it's the best thing. And so I became addicted then. I play as often as I can, and unfortunately during coronavirus we haven't gotten to do our spring girlfriend golf, but it's my love now. It's a hobby I've always wanted. I just didn't start until I was 26.
Yeah, I love it. You did touch on a few things that I think are really important. Obviously clubs are important, but even before that, getting a lesson and setting up time to learn how to play the game is so critical. How was that for you? How did you find somebody to take lessons from, and what did you guys kind of do together?
Well, you're so right. And that's why I love what you're starting again. I'll tell you one more time, probably 4 more times on here. But
Aw.
I was really intimidated by that because I think it's embarrassing sometimes, or we have the stigma that it might be embarrassing to start something later in life. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of people,
Sure.
or a lot of guys I know, I'll ask them and be like, oh, how'd you learn how to play? And they're like, oh, I either learned when I was young or I taught myself. A lot of guys are self-taught. And then
Right.
it's kind of funny that way. And so, but for me as a player, I knew I wanted to go out there and maybe I wasn't going to be the best. I didn't have those aspirations, but I knew that I wanted to at least know what I was doing. I
Right.
wanted to know what mattered. When I got my clubs, I didn't know what a 5 club did. I didn't know what a 3
Yeah.
hybrid, these different things. And you just don't learn that anywhere unless you take lessons or have the instruction based learning like you're talking about. So I was very fortunate that the Cowboys are one of the only NFL teams that have a golf course. So
Mm.
I contacted them, said, hey, I'd love to take lessons, reach out to their pro, Britt,
Okay.
and he's really great. And he taught me. But other than that, if I didn't know that, I really wouldn't know where to start
No.
because you could type up golf lessons, but then I'm like, do you have to be a member of these clubs? Do you have to do this? Where do you learn? And then
Right.
perfect example is now my parents moved up to Colorado and they have this beautiful golf course, public golf course that's across the street from them. I love playing it. Well, my mom came with me a couple times when I was quarantining up there and she's like, I wish I had learned how to play golf. And it kind of like, it didn't make me sad. And I think that it's probably still possible, but it's intimidating a woman of her age to go and say, I need lessons, or I don't know how to play.
Right, right. And you have to kind of just get over that hump of like, you'll probably need lessons, or you'll need somebody who knows how to play to at least like teach you or help you start. Yeah. No, I mean, you definitely started in the right way, and I think that's so critical. But how did you kind of get over that hump then of taking lessons to like getting a group of girls together to go play? Like that's another thing, is like finding your foursome.
It is. That's so true. Because you have like your base group. You're
Yeah.
always gonna like go and play, but you have your true crew. And I remember my aunt is a really avid golfer, and she was
Okay.
coming in early March, and so I started taking lessons in January of 2018. And I knew by March she was booking a tea time. Like we were
Right.
playing, and I was like, not like I had no idea. Like it was so intimidating. So we made it a whole thing. Like she came in town, we played. It was awesome. And then right after that was when I started the weekly 9. And I think
Okay.
having that date of like, now you have to play really helped.
Mm-hmm.
And then now I try to play at least twice a month. Like I make that a minimum goal, even if I'm playing with randoms. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's how I got that group, was really through work. And they created kind of like a little email server, and we would say like, who's going this week, we'll sign up. And it was awesome. It was always on my calendar, so the time was booked, and I just planned on it.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's key. And like having at least one person to like go do it with is huge. Like you need a buddy. It is tough, especially being a woman going, to arrange by yourself or going to play by yourself. Like I played by myself last weekend, and and they were like, there was just like, oh, I didn't think I like, you're so brave. I'm like, why am I brave? I'm like outside playing golf. Like it's let's be real. Like I'm just
Yeah.
doing an activity. So it's good to have somebody to join you, have that foursome, like, and you can make it, then it's social too.
Yeah, it is social, and like it's a competition, but always a competition with yourself. And
Yeah.
unless you're playing the Ryder Cup, which I'm not doing anytime soon, so I'm
Right.
not worried about that. But it's a competition, but it's also like it's just so therapeutic in the sense that when I go out there, I'm competing against myself of like, hey, you can do better. Like you'll do better on the next one. But then it's also this aspect of like getting out there and not being plugged in, like you said, like I'm
Sure.
just on a golf course. But
Yeah.
I don't know why. I feel like men have just loved having it as their little secret thing for so long. And it's like, nope. Like,
Right.
it's awesome. And finding that time for ourselves is so key.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that you did
I do want to ask, since Dak was being sent the clubs, and that's what kind of like gave you the bug. And I know, like we've noticed, especially in COVID, that golf and football are so different, but a lot of football players do play. And I was wondering, like, what do you think makes football players appeal to the game? Like, what is
that. I
it?
think it's the mental competition for sure.
Okay.
Because I would say, hold on a second, my dog is being a little bit ridiculous, but I'll get her. Hold on. So mental competition, because they like to, I think they also need to unplug a little bit. And I
Mm,
think that, that's why you notice golf is such a unique professional sport. And I was talking to someone about this earlier, was that golf, you could start playing maybe professionally. Like how old can you be when you can enter the professional league?
I mean, if you don't go to college, you could technically start at like 18.
Okay, so you could be 18, and if you're Phil Mickelson, you'll play to your 50. So that's
Right.
a very long career. And Phil will probably even play once he's retired. And
Right.
so that's a long, long game. Well, golf is different than football in that aspect, because football, a career could last 10 years. And if you have a 10-year football career, wow, you've really done something. So
Sure.
why I see a lot of professional football players really love the game of golf is because it allows them to have a lifelong sport.
Got
Whereas
it.
some of these other, like they can't play football for the rest of their lives. I think they hope they can play golf for the rest of their lives. And so,
Yeah.
and again, I think at the end of the day, most people just like being outdoors, and you just get to choose your outdoors.
Yeah, yeah. So you picked up the game relatively recently, but were you watching the game for longer than that? Were you like ever tuning in to golf events?
Yeah, I would tune in. I think at that point I was tuning in, just observing like what everyone else was saying. And it's really
Okay,
neat, like you actually start to learn. It becomes so much more exciting and riveting because you realize like how hard a 90-foot putt is, or all these difficult shots that they make look so easy on TV. And I
sure.
think before not playing, I was like, I've played putt putt. Like I've gotten a couple hole in ones. Like I could do. And so I think before, when I would watch competitively, I'd be like, why does Tiger not win every weekend? Like,
Right.
I just had this really naive thinking toward golf. And then so I did watch it, and that was just general golf and sport love. But now watching it, I watch it and I'm like, oh my gosh, that was a beautiful shot. Like, how did he do that?
Yeah,
It's so
yeah.
weird watching golf without fans, though.
I know. It's like I like don't mind it because I feel like you then see the golf course like as it should be. Obviously like I miss fans and like I love like people loving the game. But this is like an interesting time where like grandstands aren't everywhere and like you can actually like see the entire golf course on TV, which like maybe you wouldn't otherwise. So golf is like so unique in that way. Like because a football stadium's always going to look the same. Like, yes, you won't have fans in the stands, but like the structure doesn't change. Whereas in golf, like the actual structure of where these guys are competing changes when there's not people on site. So it's like, yeah, it's a totally different look. It's so weird to see Tiger play and then not have, rows upon rows of fans.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre, but I really appreciate your like you watching the game and like your change in mindset going from like, oh, this is like nothing to okay, I've tried golf is hard and like look at how easy they make it look. They must be, athletes that can do this.
Oh, absolutely. And then as you start to play too, and I find this with you, like I feel connected to you because we both like
Sure.
golf. And so it's such a connection to somebody to talk to about them with golf. It is a more niche sport. And so when I find a woman who plays golf, I'm like, oh my gosh, what do you like to do? How long can you play? I mean, truth be told, I really can only play nine,
Mm,
consistently with the same endurance. And I say endurance because you're right, it is a sport. And so it's like, I'll notice my body, it can't handle 18.
yeah.
I'd love to every time, but I know me is what I am capable of doing. And so that's why I really like talking to a lot of women about that because I feel like it's a common theme.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of beginner golfers too, like it's this idea that you have to play 9 or you have to play 18 holes of golf is so overwhelming, especially like if you're just starting out and it's not that fun. So the more that golf courses allow people to play like 3 holes, 6 holes, 9 holes, having like short courses where they're all par threes, like that's gonna just help more people feel comfortable trying to play the game and getting over that. You
Yeah. Yeah, and I always tell people this. Well, I mean, I'm sure I've heard it a million times, but golf is the most humbling sport.
Yeah, nobody's perfect at it. So
Like even the perfect aren't perfect at it.
right.
So that's kind of the great thing of it.
Yeah, yeah. And I like love this conversation because it's so fun for me to see people who are just starting the game like see how much fun it is and how challenging it is and like gravitate to that because that's what people have been doing all along. But now there's all these new people like getting to experience
Yeah.
and it's so fun. Like, yes, like
Well,
exactly what you're talking about.
I love it too because I wish that I had been exposed to golf when I was younger.
Sure.
And not anything against my family, but I don't think we could have afforded it because it is an expensive sport, and so that kind of takes away a lot of people to play at a young age.
Sure.
And then once you get older and you're like, oh, I have the money to play, I can go play every weekend, or I can go play, once a week. It really changes, and you have a more appreciation for it. It's kind of like, and I have Invisalign right now. Well, every time I tell my mom that I have Invisalign, she gets frustrated because she's like, I already paid for braces. But I didn't appreciate them when I had them when I was little, right? And then I lost and broke my retainer because probably I didn't pay for it. So now that I'm paying for golf as an older adult, if you will,
Sure.
but then all the time, it's kind of funny to see that I appreciate it and I cherish it so much more than I probably would have. I mean, my mom put me in piano when I was little, but I don't play piano still because I did not appreciate it. So
Sure.
I think that's why we're having more impassioned young golfers at like the young adult stage.
Yeah. Well, and then there, on top of that, there are so many things that you can frankly invest in, but like also, make your own, whether it's like apparel, you can like wear clothes that make you feel comfortable, and golf apparel space is growing. So like you can wear leggings on the course, or at least like wear brands that you like. And then, your golf bag, like you're able to express yourself with head covers and the way that you like care, like whatever bag you purchase. And, I think it's fun that people are now being creative, and they're being creative in how they dress and how they play the game and how they purchase like accessories. And it's, it allows people from all backgrounds to just like make it their own.
Absolutely. And what's funny to me is I still like the fact that when I tell someone I play golf, they're like, well, you do? I mean, they don't know that I'm not very good, but
Doesn't matter, right?
It doesn't matter. I'm still out there playing.
Right.
And the other thing is I'm not dating anyone right now, but eventually I like the fact that, hopefully whoever I'm dating will be playing golf too. And I can be like, well, let's go play together.
Right.
And so it's something that I think sometimes is looked at, well, that's just for guys. Like, that's what guys do on the weekend to get away from their family. And it's like, no, it's awesome. Like, we need to be getting away from everybody to do it.
Right. We all need that like solitude and that moment of tranquility outside on a golf course.
Exactly. So that's why I love it so much. And I mean, I think that the more I learn, the more I love it. It's just awesome.
I love that. So I noticed that you were like tweeting and paying attention during the PGA, and you pay attention to the sport. So do you find yourself tuning in more often now, or like you said that, you appreciate it more, but do you feel like you mostly watch the majors? Do you watch women's golf? Like what do you kind of tune into?
Yeah. And, I feel like women's golf has almost been a little bit intimidating to me.
Oh, okay.
Because, I mean, I'm watching them and I'm like, oh, they're so good. Like seeing them, I just can't relate to it. And then when I'm watching just, normal PGA Tour events, it can kind of be like, oh, I don't really know what the meaning of this golf course is. Because they'll talk about like, well, we've been out at TPC, Southwind. I mean, you know what this golf course means. I'm like, I really don't. I'm sorry. I do not know what it means. Whereas like Masters and all of that is just more understandable. But so yes, I watch some of those I guess just regular tour events. I don't mean to say that. I know they're all important, but sometimes they'll go and you'll be listening to these broadcasters and they're like, man, to be at RBC Heritage, do you know what this means for young Hobo Jones down here? I'm like, no, I don't know what this means. Like, I'm sorry, I haven't followed golf forever. So sometimes it's a little bit too historical for me watching some of those regular tour events. But a Sunday watching a golf tournament is still a Sunday watching a golf tournament. Like, it's still exciting because somebody's going to be victorious.
Right. Right. Do you have a favorite player?
I was thinking about that a little bit earlier. So golf is so unique because like, I feel like if you ask for a favorite player in football or basketball, like it's usually like, oh, a quarterback or a position of like skill.
Okay. Yeah.
But golf, I feel like everyone has skill, right?
Yeah.
And I would say, obviously I haven't followed golf, but I'm in social media. And if you're in social media, you know that Phil Mickelson has just taken this triumphant fireside chats. And it's awesome. And I die at every one of them. Like, I'll watch them and just be like giggling to myself like a little weirdo. So I think that I wouldn't say Phil's my favorite, but I really enjoy his social media bantering.
Love it. Love it. What do you think would help more women get into the game?
The stigma. I
Yeah,
think, how do we get past the stigma that golf is just for men? You
sure.
know, I think it's having groups like what you do. I would love to share that with so many, because I'll find a couple women that I work with and I'm like, oh, you play, like, let's go, and I think it is, like you said, event based. I just recently got into a book club, and it's pretty funny because all of a sudden now everyone's like, oh, I've always wanted to be in a book club. And I'm like, did you, or did you just like, and
Yeah,
so I think it's the more that it's out there and how you start finding out about it and seeing people like myself who's not very good, who is still
sure.
going out there and playing,
Yeah.
because it has such this stigma that, one, you have to be good to do it because it's a long commitment in time, and then
Mm-hmm.
two, you have to have a lot of money to do it, which I don't think that's necessarily the case, but I think there's that stereotype.
Sure.
And then three, like, just having young women, because I love playing with an older group of women, but they usually have their ways and they don't want to change them.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's a little bit, I played recently and I was, I guess, the youngest by like 30 years, and it was awesome. It was hilarious. But at the same token, they were like, this dingus, like, she doesn't know anything. So it's like, okay, like, it's hard to play. So I think it's just getting people out there. I will gladly help promote for the ladies because I want everyone to be a part of it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I listening to you is so interesting because, working in golf, we certainly get into like a little bubble and we're like, women's golf, it's growing so much. Like, it's so much more open, but then you like go into the real world and it's like, no, it's still not that much more open. There's still a lot of like things that we need to get over. There are not enough younger people in, especially women, younger women playing the game so that, that you have that buddy, you have that group to play with. So it's like so refreshing to just like hear somebody else talk about it and, not be in it every single day. And like, this is their hobby. This is what they just like do for fun and get that perspective. So I appreciate it.
Yeah. And I mean, unfortunately, has set itself back only because of history, right? And
Sure.
so, I was at a club in Denver 2 weeks ago, and it was a beautiful club. It's the Cherry Hills Village Country Club, and it's just gorgeous. And I was talking to my parents, and I was like, well, maybe mom could be a member here. I was just trying to figure it out. And I looked it up, and you can only be a member of your husband's, like, only if your husband is a member. Well, as we're getting older, ladies, like, more and more people aren't getting married. And so it's just interesting to see that there's still that, like, they think it's part of their history, but it's kind of sexist, like, for lack of a better term. I feel like comfortable saying this
Sure.
because
Yeah.
I'm not putting anyone down. I know that
No.
tradition is tradition,
Yeah.
but sometimes tradition wasn't always the best thing.
Right.
And so, especially in golf, they struggle so much with social issues because it was such a social sport. They didn't view it as a sport open to all. It was like the elite, the privileged had the luxury of playing golf. But golf is such an awesome sport that's lifelong, that everybody could start from a young age to, in their mid 30s. But there's this misconception about it that you either had to grow up in Florida and play in all the little country clubs down there, or you played in Arizona and California, like, that's it. And I'm like, no, there's so much out there. So that's my soapbox about golf. I just wish that if I could just sit down with some people who could help us make those decisions, I'd say you need to let women in these clubs because women have money too.
Yes. Yeah. And fortunately, I do think a lot of things are changing, but at this, there are certainly realities and there is certainly a history that, we can't change, but we should certainly be learning from and making a change for a better, golf future. But yeah, gosh, there's just like so much to unpack with golf sometimes.
Oh, there is. I mean, obviously following different golfers on social media, I remember
Sure.
we saw so many people post about the social injustice topics that so many people are getting into. And not to get political on here, but it was interesting to see how golfers were treated when they posted about it in comparison to
Mm,
some other athletes where that's a more prominent topic.
sure.
Golf is still a little bit almost rewind, like they're just catching up to some of these other sports politically, socially, all the things. And so it's just maybe in 10 years, we're like, can you believe like all these things about golf? But look at the WNBA. I think it's making a real surge right now, which if you were talking to somebody who works for them, you'd be like, we've been doing this. But that's just
Yeah.
how popular opinion works.
For sure. And some like being in golf, we certainly look to the relationship between the WNBA and the NBA, and we're like, wow, like that's awesome. Like the NBA lifts the WNBA up when they need to and when they want to, and like they're excited about it. And hopefully I'm hopeful that, golf, whether it's now or it's down the road, like the PGA Tour players can lift up the LPGA players and get people excited to tune into them too.
I love that idea. I think that'd
Yeah.
be awesome.
All right. So the last question that I ask everyone who joins me is, what advice do you have for women who want to pick up the game?
Keep going, keep playing. And I
Yeah.
say that only because I think if you just go out there, I've had a ton of girlfriends who've been like, well, I had one lesson. And then they're like, I don't understand golf now. Like I had 1 hour lesson. I can't play 9 holes. So you have to keep going. It is a commitment, but if you stay committed to it, it's the best thing you can get involved in. And it's just an awesome sport connection bond with so many different people from so many different walks of life. I promise you, playing golf is the best thing you could do.
Well, you're like the new cheerleader for golf. I'm all in on this.
Oh, yeah, and I
Reach
mean,
out to you.
I promise I will help you with anything. Trust me. But the great thing about it, and that's why I do feel so passionate about it, is because I feel like I didn't know about it for so long.
Sure.
And so to not know what I was missing out on and now be a part of it, it's really cool.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the community. You're in. You're in, you're here, you'll be the like for the ladies Texas region leader. So
I would be honored. I'll make up koozies right now. I'm like working on it.
Perfect. And we'll be in touch. But thank you so much for chatting with me today. I'm glad we could talk golf.
Yes, thank you, Abby.
All right. Talk to you soon, Taylor.
Okay.